Hey, mamas, are you just drowning in shame? How about that mom guilt? How is that working out for you? Sometimes shame and guilt can really stay in us long enough to create dis-ease in our body, and it can manifest as chronic pain. It can manifest as some chronic inflammation. It can manifest also as an autoimmunity disorder, that, all kinds of things. Sometimes even headaches and um, injuries can also occur because it's your body's and your body's energy's way of speaking to you and saying, hey, hello, there's something going on here. There's something that you're holding on to that is not serving you. Hi, I'm Margarita Rose, and I know far too well what it is like to live in shame and guilt for so many years. And I think it's something that started off as a child, as even as a young teenager, feeling the insecurity of puberty and how people can be, and your classmates and friends can be so rude and mean and judgmental, and you just start to feel like there's something wrong with you. And for me, the way that it manifested over time was sciatic pain, sciatica. And it's something that I dealt with. Something that I assumed happened because I fell and landed on my feet as a child. But the longer that the sciatica was an issue for me, the worse it got. And they would come and go. Usually the sciatic would only come if I did like a lot of workouts, I went hard on the legs, weightlifting, or I ran without really stretching or warming up or cooling down and stretching afterward. And I just assumed that it was an aggravation because of that. And so I never really thought of it much. I just dealt with it. I would stretch and I would ice it and what have you. And then in 2011, I had my first child. And when I found out I was giving birth to a baby girl, I had all these insecurities and all these past traumas I thought I'd had let go of resurface. My fear of being incapable and an inadequate mother was so palpable. It was so real. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be a horrible mom. I have no reference to what a healthy mother-daughter relationship bond looks like. And I mean, I loved being pregnant. I enjoyed every moment of being pregnant with my daughter. And I wanted to be pregnant for way longer than the 9, 10 moons that they say that we're pregnant. Not just because I love being pregnant, but I think subconsciously, deep down, I was afraid. I was afraid that I would mess her up, that I would break her, that I would get it all wrong. And I'm here to say, like, no, that's so far from the truth. That is so far from the truth. And at the same time, if I did not do the healing, if I didn't take myself on and do the personal development, that is the case. Because I've noticed that generational patterns and trauma do get passed down. And they get passed down because parents are just trying to figure it out. They don't know how to emotionally regulate themselves. They don't know how to give themselves the self-love, the compassion, the grace and forgiveness of their mistakes. And instead of acknowledging the mistakes, we just make the children be the problem. We yell at the kids like it's their fault that they can't regulate their emotions. They can't regulate their instincts or the impulses or their emotional outbursts. And the truth is, kids can't. Like physically, they cannot. If you ever take early childhood education or psychology 11, like it teaches you right there that the prefrontal cortex does not fully develop until age 25. And that is your executive function, like your ability to logic, to think clearly, to pause and not be emotional about things. And children who are traumatized or abused or start drugs or drinking early, they actually end up inhibiting that development, and they can stay stunted in their emotional growth and in their emotional intelligence. And so then in 2012, I had gotten pregnant. My daughter was 3 months old when I got pregnant with my second child. I did not know I was pregnant until I was 16 weeks into my pregnancy. My OB was like, I can tell you the gender of your child. That is how far along you are. And I was like, holy mackerel, we're having another baby. And then there was that whole, like, what am I going to do? And of course, my husband and I knew that we wanted to have 2 kids. We found out that he was going to be a boy, and it was just like, oh my gosh, we have a girl and a boy. What a blessing. And so we chose to obviously keep the pregnancy. And in that process of nursing and my body still recovering, I felt that my sciatica started becoming a chronic problem, to where it was no longer just on the back of my right side. It was like in the front of the hip. It was down the leg. It was on the top of my foot. It was on the side of my leg. It was just debilitating to the point where I couldn't wear certain shoes because it would hurt to walk. Like it felt like my bones would do this every time I would walk. And there's still certain shoes that I can't wear. And it got to the point where after having my second child, I think I doubled down on the mom guilt, because nobody really talks to you about postpartum. Nobody really tells you the signs or feeling the support, the unconditional love and support from family or loved ones that don't understand that your quietness and your isolatedness is that fear of inadequacy, that worry that you're broken and you can't do this, the shame of how you've showed up. Maybe I raised my voice to my toddler or my baby, and I just felt like crap after that. And of course that happened many times, where I would raise my voice and I would punish them, and I would just be like, oh my gosh, I feel like such a horrible mom. I'm doing the same thing my mom was doing. I'm doing the same thing my dad did. And I didn't know how to talk about it. I felt ashamed. I didn't want to talk to anybody about it, because I was just like, oh my God. And mind you, I know that there are thoughts that would come to my mind, and I know now, speaking to other moms, that I'm not alone. Like, we have these fearful, dramatic, like, scary thoughts of how, we could just end this suffering for everybody. And I've recognized is the normal way of thinking, right? As long as you don't act on it. But I didn't know that. And so it just started to amplify the shame and the guilt. And then I just started blaming everybody and everything about why I'm broke. My mom did this to me. I don't know how to do that because of this person or that situation or this event and this happened to me, and nobody understands me, and nobody ever took the time to love me and get to know me, and just blame me for everything. And I wasn't being responsible for my life. I wasn't being responsible for my choices. I wasn't being responsible for my self-care and my self-love. It got to the point where I got so depressed that I would fantasize. I would fantasize what it would look like to either run away and disappear and reinvent myself, or my car would lose control on a freeway ramp and I'd fall off the freeway, or a tree would land on me, or a rock would land on me when I'm in the car by myself, or I would fantasize that God would give me cancer to take my life, because I was so ashamed and was so worried about being judged and criticized that I didn't want the stigma of what people would say if I ended and went off planet. on my own accord, which saved my life, really. And in 2020, when things just started really unraveling and getting even more fearful and more like unsure, and the unknown was starting to really creep in, I would sitting there in my car crying, just begging for God to show me why, or to end it, or, all those things. And then I was just like, just make this pain go away. If you can just make this pain go away, I will do whatever it takes to be of service to the world. Just make it end. Either take my life or make me have a purpose. And I swear to you, in that moment, I heard, it's not about you. And I was like, I mean, it's not about me. It's all about me. And then I was like, no, it's not about you. It's about how you can help others, and how you can really be there through your pain to highlight your purpose. And I know that there's so many moms out there hurting. I know there's so many women out there feeling shamed and blamed and guilty. And so it was that moment that I chose life, that I decided that I would do whatever it takes to get myself right. So I got hired to take care of an elderly woman. She ended up just taking care of her groceries. It was like a couple hours a week. It was nothing. And about a month into working with her, she had a fall in the middle of the night where her arm got stuck in the nightstand, and she had what's called radial nerve palsy. And they also call it like Saturday night arm or something, where anyway, she put so much pressure in her nerve that she had no ability. Like it fell asleep, right? It's like almost like you cut off all the blood flow. So she couldn't use her hand. She couldn't move her hand, and it was her dominant hand. And she was just calling me in a panic that she needed somebody to live with her 24/7, to take care of her. And I do energy healing. I've always felt like I was an intuitive healer. So I started doing energy medicine on her, and all the doctors were like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like usually people, it could take up to a year or longer for them to start even being able to use their arm again. And then within like a month, she was already starting to be able to like move it and do certain things with her arm and her hand. And I made her an essential oil personal blend of mine that has like anti-inflammation and pain relief, that because she's always does research and only uses natural products, nothing with toxins. And so she really loved the fact that Young Living oils are reputable oils and clean. And so I made her this oil that she used that I think also really helped with the inflammation. But where that left me was home with her while my husband was home with the children, being now a mom, a husband, a teacher, a chef, everything, right? Emotional support for the children. And I wasn't there. I wasn't there for them. I was with this woman, and I had a choice. I could have easily just disappeared in social media, or in the news, or I could choose to take that moment of being in a quiet space and having all that time to myself to learn, to open my mind, to heal. And so I signed up for a lot of social media summit healing summits and events, and I learned about emotional freedom techniques, which is tapping. I learned about energy medicine through Donna Eden. I learned about the importance of gut health, the reason why thoughts and words really do affect matter, positive mindset versus negative mentality, and how that can really create disease. And if you're not expressing your emotions, how it can really stay and create imbalances in your body. And I was just like, oh my God, that is what's happening. And so there was a moment when my hip pain got so debilitating. It was constant. It used to be like, oh, once in a while, but then it was like constantly every day, every day, every day, and just getting worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point where getting up off the chair, off the couch, or anything would take about a minute for me to just kind of stand up straight. And I had to do it really slowly because it was just so much pain. And then I would limp for the first few steps until I finally was able to kind of like work out that pain. And my husband would often rub me, but nothing made the pain go away. I even started using like a tennis ball or anything that was soft enough but hard enough to put in certain acupuncture points in certain areas that felt tender, and I would just kind of lay there hoping that the muscle would relax and the pain would go away, and I would stretch. I had my doctors take MRIs and x-rays, and I had a chiropractor, and I had an acupuncturist. All these things did nothing. Doctor couldn't even find anything wrong with me. He goes, you have no energy, you don't have any injuries, you don't have dislocated anything, you don't have anything herniated or bulged disc or anything. So I don't know why you're experiencing pain. I'm like, so you're saying it's in my mind, it's in my head? She's like, no, all I'm saying is whatever you're doing, like the stretching, keep doing that, because it seems to be working out, but like it's not working. It's getting worse. And they couldn't help me. So there was something or somewhere where I was like, I'm just going to ask the pain what it is, like why it's there. What is it trying to tell me? So I rubbed my hands together, and then I put both my hands on my hip. I think one was in the front and one was in the back. And I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath, and I just centered myself into me and my body, and I asked, hip, what is this pain? What are you telling me? And then I heard guilt. It's like, guilt? I feel like I've already done this, because I had at that point done some inner child healing with my guru. And I was just like, yeah, I feel like I let go a lot of that guilt. And I recognized where a lot of this guilt was coming from, but it was like, no, there's still guilt. I'm like, okay, guilt about what? And then it revealed the guilt to me of why I was still holding on to feeling like I couldn't be there for my sister. Holding on to guilt that I retaliated instead of really trying to talk to my mom, and I ran away, and I kind of distanced myself from my family instead of really staying there for my siblings. Guilty that I wasn't there for my siblings, all that stuff. And then it became more than that. Then it was like shame. Then I heard shame. And the difference between guilt and shame is, guilt is I did something wrong. Shame is I am bad. I am the problem. Everything's, that's the difference. And then in that moment, I was just like, oh my gosh. And then I just started crying. I'm like, okay, it's time that I release this. And so what I did in my mind's eye is that I imagined all the versions of myself younger that felt shame and guilt. All the instances that I could recall that would come to mind of moments where I felt guilt or shame. And then I forgave the young version of me. I said, hey, you didn't know any better. It was not your job. There's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect. You're worthy. You matter. You're enough. And I said that, and I spoke to her, those younger versions of me. And I gave her a hug, and I said, I got you now. I can protect you. You're not alone. And I love you. You are loved. Like, you survived it, and now you have a choice. The whole time, still holding to my hip. And I'm crying, and I'm forgiving myself, and I'm forgiving everybody else. And I'm forgiving the situation. And I understood on a deeper level that I didn't know any better as a kid. And it was okay that I could just forgive myself for that. And after about 15 minutes, It's hard to tell how long it was that I was doing that, but about 15, 20 minutes, I felt a rush of energy that feels almost kind of like goosebumps from my hip all the way down my right leg and off my toe. And I was just like, oh, wow, that was a rush. I felt that. And then I invited all those younger versions of me, I invited her to come into the present moment with me and not stay stuck in the past. So I invited her to come to the present with me. And I just felt a sense of relief. And I shit you not, the moment that I stood up off that chair, and mind you, I was sitting for 15 minutes. So the longer I sat, the harder it was for me to get up and walk. But I stood up, there was no pain. There was no pain. No pain at all. And I was just like, okay, well, that's interesting. Okay, well, let's see how long this lasts. Well, mind you, we're in 2025, and I haven't had that pain come back. Now I am feeling like I'm getting something different coming in on that same hip, so I'm curious about to where I am now packing on new layers of shame and guilt. So a couple years ago, I decided to join a leadership program on personal development. And then I took the graduates class as well to master my leadership. And in a lot of places there, what it taught me was the importance of forgiveness and grace, the importance of not judging myself and not criticizing myself or others, right? Like my intention is everything. What I think, I create. How I feel, I manifest. And getting curious without and letting things be neutral. And it's a practice because, for up until now, I've made it a really good habit of being who I was. And so now that I'm creating a habit of becoming the healthy version of me I know I've always been, who I was born to be, who we are all born. And expressing my joy is my superpower. And when I'm in my superpower, I really can shake off the life that happens, right? Like the ugliness of life that gets thrown at you. And meeting people where they are and understanding people are on their journey. People are also hurting. Everybody is afraid, carrying their fears, wanting to be seen and heard, just like me. Is that like you too? Share in the comments if it is. If anything that I've said so far resonates, or, like, tell me what you're hearing. Like, is this helping you? Because now I recognize what my purpose is. My purpose is to really expose the importance of self-love, self-care, and how to use movement and music and creative art expressions and energy medicine to release the emotion. They usually say that when somebody has a loved one that passes away, that the other person, especially an elderly couple, right? Like, or a mother and a son. If a son dies, the mother tends to die shortly after. Well, they literally die from a broken heart because that grief gets trapped in their heart center because they're not able to express it or to release it. They're holding on to it because they feel like if they let it go, somehow they're not honoring their loved one's memory, right, or life. But that trapped emotion is creating dis-ease in your lungs, in your heart, in your breasts. So people end up getting with breast cancer, lung cancers, asthma, all kinds of things. And so it's super, super important to acknowledge and validate your feelings, to acknowledge and validate your thoughts, but to also choose when something throws you off your game, to choose to do something to get back to a high vibe. Because the longer you sit in that low vibration, the more you bring in and call more situations that are going to, beget more of that. There's a saying for a reason, misery loves company. But the same thing, joy loves company. Joy is super contagious. So choosing to shift, whatever it is, putting on a song, singing, dancing, going on a run, going on a meditative walk, taking breath work, like just even the act of breathing deep and slow really regulates your fight, flight, and freeze response. It signals to your body that you're safe, and it allows you to calm down. And these are all techniques and things that I've learned, that I practice, that weren't second nature, but now are becoming more and more habitual, to that I can understand and recognize that when I don't do my self-care or my self-love, I'm more susceptible to being thrown off my game, because my cup is not full. So are you filling your cup? Do you even know that you have a cup that you get to fill, that it's worthy to fill? Like, you can't fully love someone unless you learn and know how to love yourself. And that's one thing I've learned, and that's something I am really, really, really wanting to tell you. If anything lands, and you hear me say anything in this call, is you deserve to love yourself, because you matter. And no one's going to learn how to love you until you know how to love yourself, because that is how you understand and see the boundaries. Raising your standards. Yeah, and then just recognizing your non-negotiables. So what are your non-negotiables? Do you even know what your values are? And do they align with your vision for life, for your life? Because when you are clear on your vision, every action, every decision, everything that comes out of your mouth, and everything that you do gets to be aligned with that vision, or else it's going to throw wrenches, right? Because it's life's way of saying you're not on your path. So if you're coming up against friction and doors, fights or problems, it's because you are not on your purpose path, or you're doing it without like clear, honest intentions. And life isn't about stepping over people to get ahead. It's really about joining hand in hand and supporting one another, because that energy just brings more of that energy to you, and more opportunities for you to shine. So let's shine together, my friends. I am Margarita Rose, and my business is A Joyful Soul Spark. And there's a method that I have put together that is fun, that is innovative, that is free, where you really start to understand who you are and your purpose. And if anything, it starts to really change the relationships in your life when you start to change the relationship that you have with yourself. It just happens naturally. Like if you change the way you see things, the things that you see start to change. Or is it backwards? There's a saying that says that, right? If you change the way you see things, the things you see start to change. And that's the truth. That is such the truth. Like, people show up differently for me now because I have raised my own standards for myself. And I've respecting myself, loving myself, taking care of myself. And if you don't know how to do that, or what it looks like, or you're afraid that you're going to get it wrong, or maybe you've tried it a couple times but you keep coming back to the same thing, well, I'm here to say I can help you. Let's do this together. You're not alone. And you shouldn't be alone. So call me. I'll put a link on the description below to jump on a free complimentary call. So you can just ask me whatever questions and see if this is even a fit for you and how I can help you. And if it's not with me, like, I can direct you to some resources so that you can start this journey, because you deserve to live your best life. You deserve to be happy and prosperous and joyful and at peace. So until next time, please be kind to yourself and others. Lead with love. Spread joy. and call me, because you deserve it. I see you.